Hey y'all, this is Jessica with Bless Your Heart. Let's do a patchwork quilt tumbler today. I'm going to start with a 20-ounce sublimation tumbler and a template I just got out of the template thing on Canva. I cut out some squares out of some scrap vinyl that I have. I'm going to just use this template as kind of like my placement. My glitter choices today are going to be the Glitter Guy, Cheetah, Cash Money, and Purple Rain. And if you haven't already figured it out, we're doing a Mardi Gras theme. The template that I printed out is just kind of like a roadmap to follow. This is not an exact science. This is not anything that is going to be perfect. This is handmade, and it's going to look handmade, which is kind of what we want. So I'm just going to use my printed template as a guide. This is not exact. I feel that the less exact it is, the better the cup will turn out. You don't want it to be nice and balanced and even on both sides. We're going to end up picking the majority of this vinyl back up and moving it around. And we're going to just lay it down until we feel happy with what it is. And you're just going to keep doing that until you like it. And you can see here that I do not like this. So I'm going to lift this vinyl up. I'm going to move it to a different spot. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm happy with how that vinyl placement looks. And this is completely user preference. Once I'm happy with all this vinyl placement, I'm going to go in and use my Sharpie to kind of map out where my glitter panels are going to be. And this is just to make odd shaped squares, rectangles, whatever. You want it to kind of look like the glitter is back behind some of the vinyl. Sometimes it's going to look like the glitter's in front of the vinyl. You just kind of want it to look very organic and not mass produced, I guess. The very first time I saw this concept was in one of the Tumblr community pages. I'm sorry, but I cannot remember off the top of my head. But they look intimidating until you do it. Once you do it, it's just like a puzzle. You put these pieces together. Now, there are companies, a couple of them, that have whole templates that you can use, and that would be super easy. But what if you don't want to buy that template? Well, here you go. It's just a bunch of squares. You don't want it to look like it's something fancy and perfect. You want it to look like you've made this. And that's what quilts do. They look authentic, they look rustic, they look like your grandma did it, and it's beautiful, and it's one of your most favorite things in the whole wide world. And that's how making this tumbler ended up being. Just once I got into it, it wasn't that hard, and we made it work. Now that I'm ready to pour my glitter, I am going to go in and tape off my vinyl pieces. And that's just to help protect them from the adhesive and the glitter. Once I'm done taping off all my vinyl pieces, I'm going to go in and tape off around my first panels that I'm going to glitter. And again, this is just something to help keep me in check and put the glitter only where I want it. I'm going to use Mod Podge for my adhesive today, and every panel of glitter is going to need 2 coats of Mod Podge and glitter. I'm going to start with my green, I'm going to move to my purple, and then I'm going to move to my gold. And if I have to go in and remove tape at the end, I'm going to replace it if it needs to be replaced on that specific panel. But I'm going to let this layer of Mod Podge and glitter dry, do one more layer of glitter and Mod Podge, remove the tape, and move on to the next color. And I'm going to do that all the way around the cup with all 3 colors of glitter. Before the Mod Podge dries on that second layer of glitter, I do go in and remove the majority of the tape. I will let this layer of Mod Podge dry and replace any pieces of tape that I do need to replace, and then I'm going to move on to the next color. I'm only going to replace the tape that is going to be on the vinyl, and I'm just going to be very careful next to that green glitter. It is completely dry. This is actually dried overnight, so that Mod Podge is good and dry. So I'm just going to replace the tape over the vinyl, and then I'm going to move on to glitter. This is just going to be rinse and repeat for all of these glitter sections. We're going to do one layer of Mod Podge, then glitter. We're going to let that completely dry. Then we're going to go in and do another layer of Mod Podge and glitter, remove our tape, and then we're going to move on to the gold. Now that we're onto the gold, there's really not a lot of tape left on the cup, so we want to be careful around all of that glitter, just kind of, you know, go as gingerly as possible. But you do want to get a good layer of Mod Podge because there's not a lot of gold on this cup, so I really want that to pop. So, but it's the exact same thing. We're going to do 2 layers of glitter. After the second layer of glitter is laid down, we're going to remove our tape, and then we're going to check out our handiwork. I think that we're bang on with this patchwork thing. Y'all are doing magnificent. So for the decals I'm going to put in my little vinyl panels here, they are just, some of them are from a Mardi Gras thing on Creative Fabrica, and other ones are I've just had already in my little silhouette studio. So I'm going to go panel by panel and put down these little decals that I've kind of sized to each little piece of vinyl. Now this is a textured vinyl, so it doesn't really work very well with my transfer tape, but I didn't want to use a stronger transfer tape because there's still no epoxy that has sealed any of this stuff in just yet. So I'm going to have to battle with the vinyl, but that's okay because like I said, I don't want to pull up the other vinyl that's already there. So I'm going to go piece by piece, get all this stuff on the cup, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Now, none of these placements are going to be exact, so there is going to be a little finagling in some of them. Some of the vinyl's not going to come all the way off, so we're going to have to replace it, and that's okay. That's just part of making a tumbler. Just be careful when you're lifting up your vinyl in any time, because you don't want to distort the pattern of the vinyl or the stretch of the vinyl, anything like that. So just be careful when you're picking it up. You just place it back down, press it down pretty good, and move on to the next spot. This jester hat and mask is actually my most favorite part of this entire tumbler. I absolutely love this decal. But those little balls that are on the ends of the hat, I lost them 2 or 3 times. They were on a finger, they were on my shirt, whatever. Anyways, we made it work. I had to place them manually where they were supposed to go-ish, but I think it turned out pretty cool. So after I get all of these dots laid back down, we're going to move on to the next step. Once I'm done laying down those decals, I do take this outside and spray it a couple of times with polycrylic. Once that dries, I get a layer of epoxy over the entire tumbler. After that epoxy is good enough to touch, I go in and I just cut out some doodles that I got off Creative Fabrica. I think there's 4 different kinds, and I just duplicated them and cut it out of permanent black vinyl. So I'm just going to use all different kinds on all of these different sections. Some are going to match up, some aren't going to match up, so we're going to have to finagle them a little bit. But I'm just going to go around the cup and just line out each panel with a different doodle, and then we're going to check out our handiwork. With these squiggly lines, you need to go in with the thought that it is not going to be a crisp, perfect vinyl stripe. None of this is perfect. We don't want it to be perfect. That's what it is. That's the essence of this cup. It's all kind of patched together. These do kind of help you camouflage some things. On this particular panel, I'm going to cover up a spot that a piece of glitter fell off. So I'm just using a thicker piece of that squiggle on where that glitter was gone, and you're never even going to tell. So you're going to do this all the way around the cup. Different squiggles on different panels until you are happy with how this looks. Once we're happy with all of our doodle work, I'm going to go in and edge out the top and the bottom of this cup. I'm just going to use the lowest setting for both the top and the bottom. And once I'm happy with that, I move on to the next step. After I'm happy with my edging, I do go in and put a good layer of polycrylic over all of my doodle stripes. I don't want these moving anywhere. And once I get that done, I'm going to move on to the next step. For my top and bottom stripes, I went in and just cut out scallops, basically. And I am going to put the scallops towards the middle of the cup. So on the bottom, my scallops are going to be going up. And on the top, my scallops are going to be going down. And I'm just going to line this cup on the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to move on to finishing out the bottom of the cup. You can see on the bottom of the cup that I have sanded off some of that sublimation stuff that they put on the cups, and that's just because I don't want to see any white anywhere. These are jewel toned glitters that we're using, and I don't want to break that up with any unnecessary white. So for the bottom epoxy, I'm using UV resin and just enough glitter inside of that resin to not change the texture of my epoxy. I'm going to fill in that little well. I'm going to hit it with my barbecue lighter, cure it until it's dry, and then I'm going to epoxy this entire tumbler until smooth. And here we go. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.